Gather round, me boyos, and try your luck. The more you put down, the more you pick up. The sooner you play, the sooner I pay. 3 to win, 3 to lose. Who'll have a bet on the old mud hook? This is the kind of banter you might hear when approaching the table for a popular 19th century gambling game, Crown and Anchor, this time on the gaming bench. To play, you'll need a Crown and Anchor set. This is a board or cloth marked with 6 symbols, traditionally heart, diamond, spade, club, crown, and anchor, plus 3 dice that are likewise marked with the same symbols. The game can also be played with regular 6-sided dice and a board marked from 1 to 6. It's exactly the same, but loses a lot of its charm, I think. I made this set, and I'll link a video down below that shows how I did it. Any number of people can play. All participants are playing against the bank. But if it's a friendly game, players can take turns being the bank. Just know that, like most casino games, the odds ultimately favor the bank. The game begins when players place their bets. Put a wager on the board on the symbol or symbols you favor. Once bets are placed, the shooter throws the 3 dice. If you put a bet on a symbol that comes up on the dice, you win. The amount you win depends on the dice throw. If you match one symbol that turns up on the dice, you win 1 to 1. If you match 2 symbols, you win 2 to 1. If 3, you win 3 to 1. So if I place $1 on the heart and a single heart turns up on the dice, I get my original $1 back plus an additional $1. If there's 2, I get my $1 back plus 2 more. If 3, I end up with a total of $4. There have been many variations of this basic template across cultures and centuries. For example, the modern Chinese version, called Sickbo, is a popular casino game and offers players a wide range of betting options. But as far as the basic game, there's not a lot to it. So you have to wonder, for such a simple game, why has it remained popular for hundreds of years? Crown and Anchor belongs to the family of games called stakes board games. These are games that typically use dice to determine winners and losers, while a separate board is used to hold and organize the wagers. A classic example of a stakes board game is the German Glückhaus, which dates to at least the 17th century. I have a video that dives into the interesting and rather racist history of that game. I'll link it in the description. It's impossible to say when the first stakes board game was developed that used this particular format. That is, 6 symbols to wager on and 3 dice with the same symbols to determine winners. The popular medieval dice game of Hazard uses 3 dice, and it's documented to 1283 CE. And as previously mentioned, stakes board games in general date to at least the 1600s. So, who can say when some enterprising gambler put these elements together to create a new, fast-paced game using symbols instead of numbers? Whenever it happened, it was a hit. No doubt because it was so easy to learn and you don't even have to be literate or know your numbers to play. For the history of Crown and Anchor, I have to credit an excellent article by George Pollard. On his website, Ways to Play, he dives deep into Crown and Anchor and lists all his references, which I super appreciate. His work was invaluable while I was writing this script. His website includes articles and resources for a wide variety of games. I'll link his site in the description below. An early version of the game is recorded as being played at the coronation fair of King George IV in 1821. The name of the game isn't given, but the symbols used were clubs, spades, hearts, diamonds, anchors, and stars. An 1864 newspaper article mentions a similar game using anchor, club, star, feather, heart, and spade. And in the 1880s, the game of anchor and sun became popular in Flanders. This was Crown and Anchor exactly, just using a sun instead of a crown. This English patent filed in 1895 is for a game very much like Crown and Anchor. The patent calls it an improved game which is preferably termed Stars and Stripes and which is capable of being played by several persons. The language of the application outlines the rules of the game as they're understood today, the only real difference being the symbols used, the typical spade and club being replaced with a star and a striped block. There are also additional betting opportunities on the side. Note that triples pay 200 to 1. Interestingly, most sources I've looked at refer to Crown and Anchor as an English game, specifically a game of the British Navy. But there were very similar games being played in China and Southeast Asia at about the same time. A popular theory is that trade networks, notably the East India Company, facilitated connections between sailors, merchants, and dock workers of different cultures who enjoyed learning and playing new games. But it's unknown if this game in particular traveled from Europe to Asia or the other way around. More on that later. The popularity of Crown and Anchor among British sailors really took off during the Second Boer War when British troops fought alongside Australian troops in southern Africa. There's a number of books, newspaper articles, and diaries that record Crown and Anchor being played at military camps, aboard ships, and in POW camps. It seems to me that Crown and Anchor could have been introduced to the British by the Australians. It's not such a stretch to think that a game popular in Southeast Asia would make its way over to Australia. But to muddy the waters even more, one source I consulted suggested that Crown and Anchor could have been introduced to the British and Australians by American volunteers in the war. I think this illustrates how simple, portable games like Crown and Anchor can quickly travel between cultures and around the world, making it extremely difficult to pin down where the game really first originated. So let's explore the American connection for a minute. There was a game typically called Sweat Cloth that is recorded as early as 1808 in America. It was called Sweat Cloth because the stakes board was often drawn on a canvas saddlecloth. It's identical to Crown and Anchor, except instead of symbols, the game just uses the numbers 1 through 6 and regular 6-sided dice. The February 7, 1810 edition of the Maryland Gazette includes this amazing mention of the game. A Nicholas Crearly has, in a Bucks County paper, in the usual way, warned the public not to trust his wife on his account, charging her with having destroyed his property. His wife, in reply to the notice, says that he need not have taken this pains, as no person where he is known will trust her to the account on a single cent on his account. And as for bed and board, he never had any for her, and asked how she could have destroyed his property when he never had any except 3 dice, a sweat cloth, and a rum bottle. In the 1870s, a new version of Sweat Cloth appeared using symbols instead of numbers. The typical lineup was a heart, spade, diamond, club, anchor, and horse's head. For this reason, the game was usually called Horsehead or Mustang. American casinos embraced the game, renaming it Chuck-a-Luck. In this version, the dice were contained inside a wire cage that turned on a pivot. The game was sometimes called Bird Cage because of this apparatus. In addition to the typical 1-to-1, 2-to-1, and 3-to-1 payouts, Chuck-a-Luck included a number of betting variations with different payout amounts just to keep it interesting. So this means the game, called Sweat Cloth or Chuck-a-Luck, did exist in America prior to the 1900s. This makes it all the more difficult to determine if the game originated in Europe, China, Australia, or America. Most likely there's some common ancestor that quietly connected with all of these cultures, the origins of which have been lost to time. But let's get back to Crown and Anchor. It's not until the early 1900s that we regularly start to see Crown and Anchor mentioned by that name. The crime blotter from the February 1st, 1902 edition of the English Oxbridge and West Drayton Gazette records that George Rance, proprietor of the Brickmaker's Arms, was summoned into court for permitting gambling in his establishment. Witnesses saw, quote, men playing for money with a card sheet, which was a sort of oilcloth sheet with signs on it, including a club, spade, heart, and diamond, later explained to be the new game of Crown and Anchor. The defendant claimed that he was busy serving at the bar, and had he seen gambling going on, he would have certainly stopped it. After a brief deliberation, the court found him guilty and he was fined £3 and costs. The Pittsburgh Press from April 17, 1908 relates the sordid tale of James A. Baker, a good American boy seduced by gambling while fighting alongside British troops in the Boer War. It's worth reading the whole thing, but here's the relevant part, as told by Baker himself. At the age of 15, in my home city in Ohio, I had a desire to fight in the South African Boer War. Once in South Africa, I was enlisted in the Colonial Light Horse. With modesty, I may say I am not a coward, and in a few months I had a medal or two for valor. But in the meantime, I had learned to gamble. At home, I was a member of the First Christian Church and a Sunday school scholar, but I let loose of my church moorings and gambled. I won nearly $4,000 in the 2 years I was in the Army and reached England with about $5,000. My favorite gambling game was Crown and Anchor. I neither swore, smoked, chewed, nor drank. That is, I did none to excess. But the gambling fever got me, and it made me uneasy to see how easily I could get money without work. The story continues to relate how he returned from the war, had a falling out with his hometown sweetheart, and eventually became a yeggman, that is, a criminal. He was finally caught and related his tale to a reporter, ending with this: "To all young men I would say, stick to your mother, boys. Keep away from the bunch down at the corner. Be honest with yourself. Never do anything you wouldn't want your mother to know. Thank God my own mother doesn't know about me now." So, be careful if you play Crown and Anchor, lest you become a yeggman. Pollard's article indicates that Crown and Anchor was still mostly unfamiliar to British soldiers at the outbreak of World War I. In fact, at the time, the game was associated with Australian troops. This leads me to believe that the cultural transmission of the game may have been Southeast Asia to Australia, then to England and the rest of Europe, but that's just speculation on my part. However, according to several reports from English soldiers at the time, it was the Aussies who set up impromptu gambling halls packed with Crown and Anchor tables. It was here that operators called out to potential players, each with their own patter. "Try your luck! 3 to win, 3 to lose. No sooner you win, no sooner I pay. If you play silver, I pay silver. If you play gold, I pay gold. The more you put down, the more you pick up. Who'll have a bet on the old mud hook?" Mud hook was a common nickname for an anchor. In fact, all the symbols had nicknames. In addition to mud hook, the anchor could be called the mud rake or meat hook. The spade was often the shovel or pioneer's tool. The heart was the jam tart. The club was a shamrock. The crown was the sergeant major or Teddy's hat, Teddy being a cheeky nickname for King Edward VII. The diamond was the curse or the Kimberley. Kimberley in this context referred to the city of Kimberley, South Africa, renowned for its diamond mines. American soldiers played the game in the trenches of World War I. They considered it a British game, which probably explains why so many of my sources label it as such. But like I mentioned up front, versions of Crown and Anchor had been played in Asia for centuries. The Chinese version of the game is typically called Hu Hei Hao, an anglicized version of the Chinese name. In modern Chinese, the name translates to fish, prawn, crab, referencing 3 of the symbols used in the game. In Vietnam, the game is called Bao Koa Ka Kap, literally gourd, crab, fish, tiger. In Cambodia, it's called Kla Klok. So I think you can see how the bare bones of the game, 6 symbols to bet on, 3 dice with the same symbols, could easily move from one culture to another, simply replacing the symbols with one more familiar in the native country. But enough about the history of Crown and Anchor. How do you get rich playing? You don't. The action in Crown and Anchor comes from random rolls of the dice, so there's no real strategy to it. Now, if you're playing a version that has more betting options, consider the odds. So in Sickbo, the Chinese casino version of the game, there's dozens of betting options. Betting on a single number to come up gives you about a 34% chance of winning. but betting on a triple is about a 7% chance of winning. Of course, the longer the odds, the bigger the payout. Like most gambling games, the house always has an advantage, so the best strategy is to ignore hot or cold streaks and never bet more than you can afford to lose. And that's it. I gotta say, Crown and Anchor has a more interesting history than I expected going in. As always, I've linked all the sources I consulted below. Check them out if you want to learn more. Again, I have a video that shows how I made this Crown and Anchor set. It's a pretty simple, beginner-friendly project. Give it a try. Finally, if this is the kind of content you enjoy, I hope you'll like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time on The Gaming.